Hello, and welcome to April Fool's Month, a thing I made up so that I can write this really silly detective story. Basically, the reason it takes me so long to write anything is because I have to keep going over it over and over again and making adjustments in order to have it be even a little bit good. But I decided that if I extend April Fool's Day out to an entire month, I can write something incredibly stupid and facetious and just post that. So, for April Fool's Month, I'm doing a kind of weekly little story called Detective McCoy in Vampires in Lingerie. It's going to be very stupid and very silly, but I must warn you that it's also kind of horror themed, so there's going to be references to violence, gore, supernatural spookiness, and even some sensitive real world issues. Uh, Combining utter stupidity with these aspects probably isn't the smartest, but the entire idea of this is for me to do whatever I want without overthinking it. So I hope you enjoy Vampires in Lingerie. Have fun.
It was just like any other day in the city. Smoke from a million cigarettes rose up and meshed with the already gray skies while rain pissed down at all hours of the day, every drop having a faint, smoky taste for some reason nobody could figure out. It was on this day like any other that a smoking hot dame walked into the office of Detective McCoy. Are you Detective McCoy? The femininely female voice femmed from across the room. I haven't been called that in a long time, Toots. The grizzled detective grizzed from across the desk, looking up from the cover of his super cool fedora and taking a sip from his Vanta black coffee. By that he means we haven't had any clients in 4 months. Lucy, McCoy's faithful secretary, mournfully chimed in. It's been 4 months? McCoy asks. How the hell have we been paying the bills? Prostitution, mainly, Lucy says. Oh, my poor darling, McCoy says mournfully. You shouldn't have to do that to keep my business afloat. I never said I was the one doing the prostitution, sir, Lucy says. Your memory must be going really bad if you don't remember what you've been up to all month. Maybe I ought to lay off the sauce, McCoy says. Yes, only consuming hot sauce for breakfast, lunch, and dinner might be having negative effects on your health, sir, Lucy replies. The hot dame cleared her throat in a damely way, getting the attention of the two knuckle fucks who had forgotten all about her. My name is Charlotte Hotpants, the hot dame hotted, and I have a case for you. My sweetheart, Vinny, has gone missing, and the police have given up the search. The police? McCoy asked. Give up? Well, no, Charlotte Hotpants says. It's more that they're too busy ever since Mr. Trillion, our local everything baron, hired them all on as private security. Anyway, that's not important. My sweetheart Vinny has been having trouble finding work. Vinny hasn't been allowed in any of the factories or construction sites, so they went to go work at Tony's on 3rd Street. Thing is, ever since my beautiful Vinny started working there, they've been coming home more and more tired. And pale, too. Then, a few nights ago, Vinny went to work and never came back. We'll take the case, McCoy says. You can scan the QR code on my office door if you're curious about pricing. McCoy holsters his long-barreled 500 caliber Magnum revolver and throws on his long trench coat before turning to his faithful secretary. You coming with me, doll? McCoy asks. Sure, Lucy says, holstering her compact pistol and straightening her hair while trying to look confident. She clears her throat and in a shaky voice says, I mean, one of us has to solve the case. McCoy and Lucy rip down the roads in the McCoy car at breakneck speed. Rain, as always, lashed against their car like the city's underlying evil pressing futilely against their crusade of cigar-scented justice. What did you think of the broad? McCoy asks. The broad chest or broad hips? Lucy asks. They're both great in my opinion. I meant the broad strokes of her personality, McCoy replies. She seemed genuine, Lucy says. Well, about as genuine as any of the worried dames who manage to climb the perforated metal stairs outside our office in high heels tend to be. What do you make of this Vinny character? What kind of discrimination do you figure they're facing in the workforce? How should I know? Lucy asks. Would have been a good question to ask Miss Hotpants while we were there. Questions are for the weak-minded who hesitate, doll, McCoy says. And for detectives whose job it is to know things, Lucy adds. Are you done driving in circles, McCoy? I'd like to enter Tony's now. McCoy performs a handbrake turn, swinging around in a wide arc and perfectly parallel parking in front of Tony's, which is located just across the street from their office. Oh, we didn't crash this time and get injured, Lucy says. How nice. I rolled an 18, McCoy says proudly. Not gonna ask what that means, Lucy sighs. The two step outside and gaze upon Tony's. That is, Tony's dancing girls, as specified by a glowing neon pink sign. What the? McCoy exclaims aghast. What happened to Tony's pizza? I don't know, Lucy says. He changed it to a strip club after that trip he took overseas. Back in October? McCoy asks. Wait. Whose extra cheesy pizza have I been eating for the last 6 months then? I don't know, Lucy confesses. Detective McCoy and his faithful secretary enter Tony's dancing girls, both of them instantly bathed in neon pink lights. McCoy quickly spots Tony at the back of the establishment, sitting in the shade with 5 women, all dressed in black gothic lingerie. Well, if it isn't Zuck McCoy, Tony says. Long time no see. Tell me about it, McCoy says. I haven't seen you walking around lately. Yeah, I'm a hard-working man, McCoy, Tony says. I show up before sunrise and work here until sunset. Who are these broads? McCoy asks. Oh, these are my elite gals, Tony says, gesturing to his 5 female companions. I take only my most beautiful dancers and give them a promotion from time to time. Sometimes I send them on little house calls, which pay really well. We were wondering if you knew anything about a guy named Vinny, McCoy says. Guy named Vinny, Tony asks. Don't know no guys named Vinny. Actually, I know tons of guys named Vinny, but none of them work here. One of my gals is named Vinny, though. One of your gals, McCoy asks. Oh, sure, she walked around with short hair, Tony said. But she always went out on the dance floor in a dress I picked out for her. Here, take a look. Tony passes 2 photos to McCoy. One is of a young woman with short hair, overalls, and an oil-stained shirt. The other was of the same woman in a skimpy red outfit, her hair done up to be wavier and more flowing. Eesh, dropping her whole aesthetic for $1, McCoy says. It's a sad economy. For lots of bucks, Tony corrected fervently. Ever since certain laws have been lifted, the factories and construction sites have been turning away broads. Honestly, she should be thanking me for giving her this job. In fact, I was thinking of calling you about her, but I guess somebody else already has. They went missing a few nights ago. I sent them on a house call and they never came back. Here's the address. Tony hands McCoy a slip of paper, and McCoy reads it over. You got any questions for the man, doll? McCoy asks. Doll, where are you? McCoy only now realized that Lucy wasn't at his side, and turning around he saw Lucy leaning on the runway with a martini in her hand. A topless woman was kneeling in front of her, seemingly charmed as Lucy talked. The first Derringers were made in 1825 by Henry Derringer and were like old-timey pirate pistols but were cut in half, Lucy says. Lots of women prefer Derringers because they're easily concealable, but I prefer having more shots available. That's why I have this semi-automatic pocket pistol. Not much stopping power, but then again, we're talking men here, not bears. This one has a custom sight on it. Hey, McCoy snaps. We're doing an investigation here. You gotta stay focused, doll. God forbid I leave the investigating up to the private investigator, Lucy groans. Did he just call you doll? The stripper asks. That's pretty inappropriate, you know. He shouldn't put up with that. That's the kind of thing I'm paid to put up with. Oh, he didn't call me Doll, Lucy says. He called me Doll. It's my last name. You know, like Roald Dahl, author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Damn it, Doll, will you stop bringing up your grandfather every chance you get? McCoy grundles. Let's go. Time's a wastin'. Once again, the wheels of the McCoy car screech as McCoy and Lucy go ripping around the corners of the city streets. I never took Tony for such a sleaze before, McCoy crunks. I mean, sex work is one thing, but having his best gal sit around him like status symbols? I'm worried he might be a womanizer doll. He's hit on me literally every time we went to him for pizza, Lucy says. You might have noticed if you weren't ogling the pies. You know, I was doing work in there. I was asking that stripper about her working conditions. She used to work at the Diamondback before it closed down a few months ago when the owner died mysteriously. According to her, Tony takes a pretty unfair cut of the money. They're basically living off of scraps there. And then she asked me if I had any hobbies, and I kind of zoned out and started talking about guns, and oh, look, she tucked her phone number into my bra. I didn't even notice because I was caught up in my gun facts. I'm actually really disappointed in Tony, McCoy says. I'm going to have a talk with him about treating his employees better. If anything, he should adopt my principles of paying my employees. Yeah, somehow I don't think you're going to convince him to pay his workers more than he gets, Lucy says. Without your coffee and paperwork, I wouldn't be able to do the shooting and investigating, McCoy says. Tony owns the building, but his customers ain't coming there to look at the decor or his ugly mug. Those ladies bring all of the business. They deserve at least as much as he gets, and I'm gonna have a stern word with him about it. Lucy smiles to herself. Oh, that's why I haven't quit working for you yet, Lucy says. I almost forgot. We're here, McCoy says. McCoy pulls the handbrake and swings the car around in a wide arc. They slam into the curb and roll over it, crashing into the wall of the apartment complex. Bricks and dust shower down onto the McCoy car. Sorry, McCoy says. Rolled an 8 that time. Just help me find my glasses off the dashboard, Lucy groans. The two step out of the McCoy car. Lucy stretching with audible cracking sounds and McCoy wiping the blood from his nose. Looking around, they see that 2 or 3 police cars are stationed outside. You think it's a coincidence the cops are here? McCoy asks. Probably, Lucy says. The city is the only city in America with a higher rate of murders than of births. We're on track to be depopulated by the year 2415. Anyway, we'll know for sure once we're inside. McCoy and Lucy climbed the stairs of the dilapidated old apartment. The smell of mold was prominent throughout. All windows were cracked or broken, trash was in every corner, and exposed pipes and wires took on active water damage. It was clear that the landlord hadn't done any maintenance since the day the place was theirs. The sign outside said prices start as low as $4,500 a month, Lucy remarks. It's one of the city's budget apartments. They reach the apartment on the address slip and find the door open, with a lone police officer pacing back and forth inside. The officer looks up at McCoy and smiles. Well, if it ain't the good detective and his faithful secretary, the officer exclaims. Didn't I bust you for a phishing scam last year? McCoy asks. And for stealing the jade diamond before that? Ah, but before that, Remy the Roach was a used car salesman, Officer Remy says. And before that, I ran a dry cleaner. Remy is more than just a criminal. I'm a survivor, and right now, I'm a cop. So, what brings you here? Missing person case, McCoy says. A dancing girl's gone missing, and apparently this was her last job. Well, I guess she'd be a prime suspect for the murder that's been committed here, Remy says. Why don't you, come see for yourself? McCoy and Lucy enter the apartment. The smell of death filled the air. Laying on the floor before them was an older man, sprawled out on his back. His throat had been ripped open, and his blood soaked the carpet through. A newspaper, torn to shreds, sits next to the body. Lucy averts her eyes for a moment, before steeling herself. Hey, you didn't hurl this time, McCoy says in a mocking tone. Well, this time the body didn't fall out of a closet onto me and get blood all over my nice shirt, Lucy says defensively, and onto my glasses, and my face, and into my mouth, and... Lucy shudders. McCoy kneels down and examines the body closely, and then pulls out a magnifying glass. He scans every inch of the corpse up and down, nodding and humming to himself. My God, McCoy declares. They're dead. This is a corpse. Lucy sighs and crouches down next to McCoy. Rolled low, did we? Lucy says before giving the body a cursory glance. That's odd, Lucy says. Remy, any of you boys in blue take note of these 2 little puncture wounds on the side of the neck? Honestly, none of us looked that closely, Remy says. It's, pretty icky. Was anything obviously taken? Lucy asks. Nothing obvious, Remy says. Although we do think an attempt was made on that vault on the wall. McCoy and Lucy look into the adjoining room and see a hole ripped out of the wall where a vault would have been. It was a successful attempt, so I guess technically something was taken, Remy says. What's with this shredded newspaper? Lucy asks. It's a shredded newspaper, Remy says. Brilliant observation, Lucy says. There's blood on it. Could have been torn up by the same thing that tore out the man's throat. McCoy steps into the adjoining room and sees a bookshelf and piles of discarded books on the floor. What's the deal with these? McCoy asks. Place looks like it's been ransacked. Yeah, Remy says. We've come to the conclusion that the place was ransacked. Weird, McCoy says. They ripped out the vault, which I assume had something valuable in it. And then they knocked over a bunch of books. And then they left without taking anything else. Doll, want to come help me restock this bookshelf? Lucy, a little confused, comes over. The 2 of them begin putting books and trinkets back on the shelf until there were no items left on the floor. 1 book short of a full shelf, McCoy says. Think that's a coincidence, Doll? You never know, Lucy says. I couldn't help but notice blood was both on the inside and outside of some of these books. Looks like our perp decided to skim read after the murder. Who is this guy anyway? McCoy asks. Professor of occult studies, Remy says. Moved to America from Germany a ways back before moving here. Has some, mob connections. The mob, they're, awful superstitious these days, and they often consulted the old man about, spooky matters. Or so the rumors say. McCoy looks over the dead man's desk, which is cluttered with mail, documents, and newspapers. He picks one up and glances over it, but fails to glean any information from the note. He drops it down on the desk and returns to Lucy. Tell us about the discovery of the body, Lucy says to Remy. Landlord busted in this morning because the old professor was behind on rent, Remy says. That's when the body was discovered. Door was not only locked, but bolted from the inside. Perp must have come through the window, Lucy says. Well, the window was open, Remy says. But we're on the 4th floor. There's no fire escape or handholds on that wall. Well, what do you think, Doll? McCoy says. Hard to say, Lucy replies. We should probably give the apartment a good once-over. Lucy and McCoy spend about an hour searching the apartment up and down. The only extra evidence they're able to find are scratches on the wall, leading to where the vault in the wall was. The 4 parallel scratches in the brick give the impression of claw marks. Well, I'm stumped, McCoy says. Maybe we ought to talk to Tony again, Lucy says. I have a weird feeling he's not telling us everything he knows. I guess that'll be worth it, McCoy says. Come on. The sun's setting and Tony's is closing soon. Yeah, I'll be turning in soon too, Remy says. Don't you need to watch the crime scene? Lucy asks. Remy says with a shrug. New policy. We only guard the crime scene for about half a day, and then we kinda just leave the body there and let the rats and cannibals do the rest. As McCoy and Lucy leave the room, a man with a knife and fork checks in to see if the officer has left yet. McCoy and Lucy step out onto the rainy city street. Street lights flicker to life as the sun fully dips below the horizon. McCoy lights up a cigarette and takes a long drag before letting out a huge puff of smoke. Those things will kill you, Lucy says. Death can earn me when it halves me, McCoy says. Huh? Lucy says, confused. A little Victorian paper boy stands a few feet away from the 2, waving a rolled-up newspaper in the air. Come get your newspaper, the boy cries. Newspaper here. Read all about it. Evening edition of the City Times. McCoy approaches the newspaper boy casually and says, Tiny Tim. It's Jerome, actually, the paperboy says. Okay, Tim, McCoy says. You know that professor who lives in that apartment? Old man, Sigmund Freud vibes. Oh, yeah, Jerome says. He's always been nice to me. Always bought his paper from me and even gave me sweets sometimes. My best customer. Well, he's been murdered as fuck, McCoy says. What? Jerome stammers. So if he got a newspaper a few days ago, he would have gotten it from you, McCoy asks. I guess so, sir, Jerome says. Do you happen to still have a copy of the paper from, a few days ago? McCoy asks. I don't know, mister, Jerome says. Maybe while I look through my bag here, you can, make me a luck roll. Oh shit, Jerome says. I actually have a motherfucking copy of the paper I had the last time I saw him. McCoy glances over the headline quickly. Hey, doll, McCoy says. Get over here. Lucy looks at the headline, which reads, New City Ordinance Solidified. Gender Employment Discrimination Protection Revoked. If this was that night's paper, then it's the same paper that was shredded next to the body, McCoy says. It's a shame. I don't know what to make of it. Well, it's a headline that would make Vinny especially upset, Lucy says. That implicates her in this, McCoy says. But why would she agree to go murder someone? Maybe she didn't, Lucy says. The newspaper was beside the professor, and he was still wearing his shoes. I think whoever broke in there must have done so before the professor got back from work. The intruder came through the window, and then the professor came inside and locked and bolted the door behind him. He walks into the living room and sees the intruder ripping the vault out of the wall in the other room. And the intruder kills him to make sure there was no witnesses, McCoy says. Or perhaps not, Lucy says. Whatever was in that vault seems to be disconnected from the missing book. I think that perhaps the burglar went off script. McCoy shrugs. Shrug. So, maybe it was the newspaper, Lucy says. If we assume it was Vinny who did the break-in, it might have been the newspaper that made her go off script. If only there was a way to know what was in that vault, McCoy says. Or what book was taken. Maybe we can go to the city university where the professor worked at, Lucy says. They might fill us in on what he's been up to for the last few days. Yeah, let's go there and have an ask around, McCoy says. I agree, Jerome says. Huh? What? Just then, Remy comes charging out of the apartment complex, running towards his car. From his radio, gunfire and a panicked, crackling voice spills out. We need backup, the voice from the radio says. We need backup, now. There's some kind of wild animal in here. I swear to God, it ripped my partner's throat out. What the hell is going on, McCoy says. I don't know, Remy says, leaping into a squad car and slamming on the accelerator. McCoy and Lucy leap into the McCoy car, with Lucy frantically clipping her seatbelt. Hold on to your butts, McCoy says. Oh, you got it, boss, Jerome says from the back. Lucy lets out an exasperated sigh.